93 Eurovan shifter bushing here that this shifter link sits in. Sits in this little bracket right there. Bushing looks like this. It's fairly straightforward to get at once the starter is removed. I forgot to record this with my video glasses. I should have. Didn't think that it was going to be that important to record, but anyways, now you know. Remove the starter. Remove the two mounting bracket bolts. Press this bushing in to the bracket, put the bracket back in, and then push that shifter rod into the bushing. Okay, as I said earlier, starter comes out and you have nice easy access to all of this. The bushing here I didn't record. It's simple. You take the bracket off, you put the bushing or the bracket in a vise, and then as you squeeze the vise, the bushing will work its way in. You just got to help it out a little bit with the screwdriver. The inside of the bushing is already lubricated. I'm going to lubricate this ball a little bit. This one I already replaced as well. It just slides off and on. Lubricated it a little. I'm just using some of that Worth silicone compound, similar to a rubber grease. Okay, so then you just line up the ball in the hole. Support the bushing from the rear, because the bracket's going to want to move, and then you push the bushing in with the second pry bar. And you just give her slowly. There you go. It's good for another 100,000, hopefully. So if you lift the coolant bottle, you'll see the little drain here. This little knob sits in here, but anything that spills out of here will run along the chassis. It'll go down. You can see these are the lines that you were checking. And they go down there, and then they enter the frame. So any coolant that leaks here goes down, and it comes out underneath where you set those lines are. So check the coolant bottle, make sure that it's not venting too early. If it is, try a different cap. Make sure the engine's not overheating. That'll cause too much pressure. That'll cause that to vent. Otherwise, any coolant hose, obviously you have to check anything that could leak and drip into that area down there. That's where it's all entering, and then it runs down along the chassis. So again, I can't tell from where I am at. That's where you have to look, and it could very well be that it was just all residual coolant, and it should have stopped by now if that was the case. If it still leaks, obviously just follow the leaks and you'll find it. But like I said, don't worry about any of these lines, only worry about the coolant lines and check for leaks there. But it has to be in this area because it's leaking down, right? So follow the leak. Just got into this TDI to drive it in, or drive it around the block first. 0318, year 2018. That's a good sign. But there's my 318. I think we have 3 customers with this kind of production date, and this is the first time the customer's here, so it's not a reoccurring 318 that I run into here. This is a new one. So again, my curse holds true still. Simple way to check for a current draw on a Vanagon. Disconnect the battery negative. Attach a test light to the negative post. First, make sure the test light works. Then you attach the test light to the battery clamp, or the negative clamp, which is disconnected, and you can see the test light is illuminating, so that tells me that there is a draw. It doesn't tell me how big the draw is. Well, maybe according to brightness, the brighter the light, the bigger the draw. So if your vehicle has issues starting after sitting for a week, could very well be that this draw is big enough to bring the battery down or drain the battery. Obviously, you can use a multimeter set on amperage and check across just exactly the same way. I'm doing this one-handed, sorry. So this one's got 90 milliamps, almost a tenth of an amp. Anything more than 50, actually even anything more than 30 on these older vehicles is already too much, especially if the vehicle doesn't get used much. So now it's time to pull fuses one at a time, and then once the draw goes away, you've successfully found the circuit. Then you got it, or in terms of the fuse, then you still have to figure out what is on that fuse that could potentially be drawing the current. Sometimes it's an aftermarket radio. It could be a dome light that's on. Actually, a dome light would be drawing more, and you'd obviously see it. So that's where the fun troubleshooting begins. But anyways, use a test light if you have one. Otherwise, use your multimeter set to amps. And like I said, anything more than 50 should be a concern. Definitely anything close to 0.100 or 100 or 1/10 of an amp, definitely it's way too much. And again, this case 90 might be okay if the vehicle is driven every day, but anything more than 50, you might want to just at least investigate to see what it is that's drawing the electricity. Okay, this is the way I understand that the thermostat works on the Vanagon 2.1 liter. So this is obviously the thermostat flange that sits in the motor. I can't hold it up straight, so I'm just letting it rest like this. Coolant, sorry, I just had a brain fart. Coolant returns from the radiator at the upper flange, so there's a big hose here. If you look, this is the feed to the water pump. If you look in here, you can see the base of the thermostat, and it's not covering the hole at the bottom. The hole at the bottom, this is the hose that goes to the other side. So this is the bypass. You got coolant coming from the other side, and coolant from the number 3 and 4 cylinder. Both of them meet here, and then the coolant goes up and comes out where that where the bottom of the thermostat is. So you have warm coolant from the 1 and 2 side, warm coolant from the 3 and 4 side, coming up and going to the water pump. And that's what I mean by bypass. And this is the way the engine recirculates coolant to warm up quicker. What the thermostat does, it is supposed to open here, but I believe that it's supposed to also close that bypass at the bottom. If it does not close that bypass, then you always have warm coolant going from number 1 and number 2 and 3 and 4 back to the water pump. Okay, so hopefully that'll make sense, or makes sense, and maybe just check that. Take the thermostat out, or take the hose off and see how close it is to that hole, and then check the actual distance of the thermostat when in boiling water. See how much longer it gets, or boil it, get it to where it's extended, and then quickly put it into the housing to see if it closes that gap. I could be wrong, but this makes sense to me because over the years we've had many vehicles that had running hot issues, and it always was solved with a thermostat. We just tried different brands, and then right now I think it's Wagner, or I can't remember now. This is a Mali one, but I think the issue with bad thermostat is not as prominent anymore as it used to be. So now we don't worry about it really unless there is a running hot issue after replacing the thermostat. Okay, hope that clears things up. For all you non-Volkswagen owners and or Volkswagen mechanics or non-Volkswagen mechanics, I'm going to let you in on a little secret about Volkswagen owners and about Volkswagen mechanics. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because there's a telltale sign of what I'm about to explain. So engine bay on a van, and if you look down in here, you can see there's a dime, what looks like a dime, and or a nickel, could be a nickel. And the reason that's there is the owner will look through the engine bay and see what's wrong, and then he'll take a coin and he'll flip it. Depending on if it's heads or tails, he's going to say, okay, I'm going to get it fixed. Conversely, if it's a mechanic, he'll flip the coin, and then it'll say, and that'll tell him whether or not to either go ahead and fix it as a recommendation or not. So anyways, that's it. If you have tires that go flat and you can't find any nails, use some Windex window cleaner and just spray the whole rim of the tire, and you'll eventually see what looks like foam starting, especially if it's a minor leak. Let's just see if we can pick it out. Right there. So this is where the leak is. And that'll leak. It's obviously a slow leak. It may take a few days, maybe a week or so until it's noticeably low on pressure. But this involves taking the tire off and cleaning the rim on the inside and then reseating the tire. If the tire is no good, it's a perfect time to change it as well. 85 Volkswagen Transporter, actually it's a crew cab pickup. Guess who did the head gaskets 14 years ago? Not a sign of leak anywhere. Another lucky repair on my part. If it were to only act up now though, it's in for a rough running intermittent stalling. Hasn't acted up yet. Smooth as a baby's bottom. We'll see. Maybe it'll act up later. So I've run into this a couple of times now. Customer complains about intermittent stalling or hard starting. It's running right now. Crank sensor is not putting a signal out. And I always said that a crank sensor will cause a no start or a no run or stalling, but look at this, crank sensor is disconnected. So I guess once it's running, it maybe does rely on the cam sensor signal, but most of the time the car will stall and or not start if you disconnect it. It actually probably won't start right now. Hey, shut it off and try to start it. He's gonna shut it off. Start it. Yeah, that shouldn't happen. So anyways, have you guys ever run into that? Thanks. Installation of crank seals is quite easy actually with the right tools. There's a initial sleeve tool that you slide the seal over, and then you use this factory tool to push it in place. Looks like I made it. Yep, got 20 subscribers today. I wish I had 20 grand on me, but 20,000 subscribers. Awesome. Thank you very much.